Welcome to City Cinematheque, where the art and pleasure of the movies are the subject of serious discussion. I'm your host, Jerry Carlson, and I teach film studies at the City College of the City University of New York. Today we start our series, The Soviet New Wave, looking at some really interesting films from the mid-1960s in the Soviet Union. Today's film, I Walk Around Moscow. And it asks the question, in a certain way, what was it like to be a baby boomer in the Soviet Union in the early to mid-1960s? We're going to see some young people having some adventures together in what is now a cult classic of Russian cinema. Joining us to discuss this marvelous film afterwards is Professor Emil Dreitzer. And Emil will have some memories of having seen the film in its initial release in Moscow. Now, enjoy your trip in a time tunnel to Moscow in I Walk Around Moscow. Welcome back to City Cinematheque. I hope you enjoyed your stroll around Moscow with these young folks, and a very, very interesting city and film it is that we've just seen. I have the pleasure of having back on City Cinematheque a good friend of the show, my colleague from the City University of New York, Professor Emil Dreitzer, Professor Emeritus at Hunter College of Russian and Slavic Studies. He's the author of 18 books in 5 languages, some of which have to do with his considerable interest in Russian and Soviet cinema. Welcome back, Emil.
Thank you.
Great. So let's just start with framing this film historically. So this film comes in this window that's now referred to as the Khrushchev Thaw. So what was the Khrushchev Thaw?
Khrushchev Thaw is basically rejection of the Stalinist era of strictly ideologically movie maker, in which it was a way to keep control over people's mind through movies and through the style of socialist realism.
Okay.
Right, basically socialist realism, to name it. It means don't show life as it is, but how it should be under the guidance of the Communist Party and so on. That was, so in other words, movies shown before do not reflect real life at all.
Right. And one should point out that the official adoption of socialist realism comes after Stalin has gained power in the 1920s, and it becomes official doctrine in 1934. So we're talking about a film here made in the early 1960s. So what we're really imagining is 30 years of the industrial production of cinema in the Soviet Union under this one umbrella, this one official aesthetic. So that's a lot of movies, and that's got an audience trained for certain kinds of expectations.
Well, the audience basically would come, we mentioned our conversation that Volga Volga was the beloved movie of Joseph Stalin.
And what was Volga Volga?
Volga Volga is a movie that produced in 1938, in one of the bloodiest years of Stalin's Great Terror. However, it was about actually winning the new life, new Soviet way of life, winning the hearts and minds of people from provinces. They come to Moscow. In Moscow, there is the epicenter of the progress.
Okay.
Okay. When you come there, you see huge buildings. You see actually, I brought attention to my students that the huge ship that's coming into the Moscow harbor is called Joseph Stalin.
Okay.
Okay, so
nothing subtle about that, right?
Nothing.
No ambiguity
nothing.
of any kind.
People, embrace the idea of Soviet power as giving them future hope and future. future, not present.
Right, right. No, always that promise of the slightly, deferred, but it's coming. It's
coming.
It's coming. But also one of the things, and we'll get to our film in just a second. But one of the things about socialist realism as an official aesthetic is that it crossed what we would, simply refer to as genres. So for those who have not seen it, they should understand that Volga Volga is socialist realist, but it's a socialist realist musical.
Absolutely.
So what was this relationship between entertainment and ideology in these films?
Well, entertainment was that bring people to the movie theaters, but they were fed pure ideology.
Okay.
Movies before that, circus was related. Was brought actually primarily to promote Stalin's constitution.
Okay.
That was so it shows superiority of Soviet Union over United States, over Germany, over anybody else, because they're all behind in history. The future belongs to the Soviet Union.
Okay. So before we go into the many fascinating features, the characters, the setting, the cinematography of today's film, I Walk Around Moscow. Share with us what your experience was, because you had told me you saw this as a young man. You saw this film in Moscow,
exactly,
on a trip to Moscow. So tell us about that and what your response to that film was 60 years ago.
The film became sort of. I almost saw myself in many frames of the movie because I was in Moscow, living in Moscow, just starting. I was moved from Kiev to work in the research lab near Moscow. So I saw, for example, even the very street in which the hero appear in the streets, Чистые пруды, the boulevard. Okay, my office was nearby.
Wow.
There. Secondly, the traveler from Siberia, who's published, they published his story in a youth magazine. That's what I would dream. I was starting writing at that time. I would dream about, and the dream came true a few years down the road.
So you published in the same magazine that is portrayed in
portrayed in the movie because it was very prestigious, young. Basically the whole journal, the name Youth was actually also kind of related to the Khrushchev Thaw.
Okay.
It means let's start all over,
Okay.
from the very youth. And the movie is about youth, about
Right.
young people coming to life, and we see a hero. The heroes of the movie is a worker of the subway. He builds subway.
Right.
We see a young, lady who sells record.
She's a clerk in a store.
And the record, if you pay attention, all of classical word. There is one joke that I don't think will came across when I ask about Robertino. Robertino was a young singer, very popular at that time.
Okay.
And they said to him, why you don't have any more Robertino? Somebody joked, he grew up. You see what I mean? And for that time. So I relate to everything. I live in Moscow at that time. I listened to, obviously, Robertino.
And do you remember seeing it in the cinema and coming out and saying, this is a breath of fresh air, and
Absolutely,
this is like nothing I've quite seen before?
Nothing quite, well, for example, if you compare it to socialist realism movie Fall of Berlin, the hero is a record producer of steel in his head. So he's
a model worker.
A model worker. We don't see this because look, even the kind of blue collar worker we see in the image of subway, subway
Right.
worker. He doesn't look at all. He doesn't talk about it much.
Right.
Moreover, his time between finishing his shift and the next one, all this one day actually what was happening. Look, he befriends this traveler from provinces.
Siberia.
Siberia. He helps his old friend, 19-year-old boy, to basically to marry the girl who he wanted to marry to begin with. He's doing everything just out of sheer. He's full of energy
And friendship.
and sort of what's important. It's not just promise of the future. They live in pleasure, and this song is basically. It happens that everything is fine. I mean, I have this translated into English. It happens, everything is well in the world. Now, you understand?
Right. Not in the future.
Not in the,
everything's well now.
What's happening right away, you won't understand, but the summer rain passed. Usual summer rain. In other words, the rain carries in this movie, in my opinion, so much image of like cleaning the old past. Now we feel young. We feel that the rain, all the dirt took away. Right. This is a generation of post-World War II.
Right. And as I said in the introduction, this is, I mean, what one can relate to this is how should we put it? This is Soviet baby boomers. This is people who were born during the war, immediately before it, who have no memory of it, and whose experience is exclusively of post-World War II Soviet Union. They are not the direct participants in the Great Patriotic War.
Absolutely, no. They were babies when.
Right.
So when when Stalin died in 1953. In 1956, Khrushchev made this famous speech at the Central Committee of Communist Party, in which he actually, for the first time in Soviet history, told about the crimes against humanity committed in Stalin's time, on Stalin's order, and so on. So therefore, they are totally new generation. They are full of kind of enjoyment of life now.
Right.
Right. Not in the future. Whether it's falling in love with the Siberian traveler, he falls in love with whether in making fun, basically, at least in two places, and I believe, making fun of the previous generation.
Okay. Yeah. And
in the scene in the Чистые пруды, white, clean ponds, I would say in English. Yeah. There is when in the episode with the dog, all of a sudden appears a middle-aged man, much older than the person, and he says with no question, he doesn't ask any question. He simply appears and says, "Okay, the dog has to be either taken away to or put
down, yeah.
Put down. You have to call police. You have to make a protocol." And he moves further away. And what's interesting, he moves in the opposite direction from the young people coming. So in other words, so it's definitely
he's the Stalinist past.
Stalinist past, yeah. And there is also an episode of military officer, major, making fun of actually generation that of the father of the, he says, "What's your name?" "Alexander Industrievich."
Okay.
And
not a very odd name, yeah. What's about that?
Industrievich. And he kind of not simply asks him, he kind of says it, what a bizarre patronymic name, and obviously the Industrievich is not a natural name. Right. Usually it's a name of a name that people give their children when they were born. Usually it's a known name in Russian, Alexander, even Ivan, whatever it is. And this one, Industry. Yeah. So the name of the father of this man was Industry. Okay. And it obviously goes back to the time when the first generation after revolution were kind of it was told them that yet they should support revolutionary idea, but giving names with revolutionary kind of implication, like barricada, barricade,
Okay.
or industry, or abbreviation of Lenin's name, and things like that, okay? So he makes fun of it, not once even, a couple of times
Right.
in the movie. So that means it's totally, the whole generation is totally moving away from the old times.
Right. And one aspect of this in the film is that, Moscow is a crossroads. It's a capital, okay? But it's a crossroads of the Soviet Union, but it's also in the film portrayed as a crossroads of the world. And there's a way in which the film, we have them trying to help out the Japanese fellow. In the taxi. We have the language learning that's happening in the cafe across the street, and this opening out to the world itself and to the world beyond the so-called Iron Curtain. That's another new thing, right?
Absolutely, yeah. That's the whole thing, is that it shows the hope of this generation to become part of the world.
All right.
Not as separate. We are people of the future, in other words, in Stalin's time.
Right.
Now we are, you told about learning English language, helping Japanese to see Russian art, right? He comes to Tretьяков Gallery and so on. So this is all part of this kind of a new spirit of life.
Right. And it's worth pointing out that, during the more horrific paranoid phases of Stalinism, the learning of the wrong language was enough to get you tried and sometimes killed, because people were accused of cosmopolitanism, and that was a crime, and sometimes a crime of a death sentence.
But interesting, at the Stalin's time, the language taught in middle schools was German.
And why was that?
Because on the one hand, officially it was, when the war started, it was the language of the potential. Well, it was starting around 1935, language of potential enemy.
So you must know the enemy's language.
But at the same time, there was some period, and recently I was really shocked. I never thought of it, that in the mid-30s they were selling in Soviet Union busts of Stalin and Hitler together. So there was a rapprochement of two ideologies were very close to it, very close to it.
But one of the, to put it as simply as, one of the quirks of Stalinism is what Stalin's good idea is today may not be, he can define as a bad idea the next day. And so by following the rules, you get punished because the rules have changed.
But at the same time, they both basically, the system at that time was about the same.
Oh no, that I don't doubt.
They were totalitarian countries
with command economies,
and secretly they admire each other for their handling and all. There is some hidden sympathy, and needless to say, but when the after the Ribbentrop-Molotov Pact in 1939, they ceased altogether anti-fascist propaganda. Mm-hmm. So for my family, it was direct ramifications, because my grandfather, his story that he was a prisoner of war of World War I.
Okay.
And when he came after that, and after period after 1939, when the Germans eventually entered Soviet Union in 1941, he did not understand that this is totally new breed.
Okay.
The Nazism and so on. And it ended with he never ran away, because he felt he's old enough for.
It did not end well.
Yeah, and the German paratroopers caught him in the Minsk and killed him.
Yeah. So this is the past that our characters know about because their parents have told them about this. There's been the official stories of the Great Patriotic War, and what we're watching is these young people who know this. And I should say we do have the scene in which we have the grandmother talking about the family portrait, and she talks about the sons killed during the war, and that is acknowledged, etc. But they feel they have the liberty to move on and to both live in today and to move on proud of what their parents accomplished, etc., but not to only live in that shadow.
Yeah, their life is totally different from their parents, and they seemingly feel free. That's the feeling that when you watch the movie, that all characters are feeling free. They're not under obligation to be record workers or anything like that. They just simply feel free.
Right. And let me ask you just directly, did you feel that way at that moment when you were living in Moscow, or was this aspirational in the movie?
No, actually, I did feel much better than I was born in before when the war started. I was 4-year-old boy.
Okay.
And so I survived it thanks to my mother, who took me back in the Asian part of the country, and I was there. But the movie actually almost signaled to me, this is a new time.
Oh, okay.
You have to
so it gave you privilege.
That. And again, the rain, as if all of it just washes away.
Right.
All of it. That's why in this, I think I mentioned it, that there is even a separate movie called July Rain,
which we are screening in this series. It'll be shown.
That's the implication of the rain that washes away all the dirt of the past and so on.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about the cinematic feel of the film, because one cannot fault any number of the socialist realist films as being technically and narratively very good storytelling. It's of a particular ideology, but these are there are many very well crafted films that are socialist realist. But this also, at this level of story construction and at the level of cinematic style, is just it's off the map of socialist realism. In what ways do you find that to be?
Well, for example, the scene of Moscow Street, when they show Moscow Street, and I see that the flow of sedans, I mean, Russian cars for the individual,
right?
For individual, not trucks.
Right.
If that would be a socialist realism movie, Moscow will be full of trucks to carry, who move forward, and so on and so forth. No, that's what's interesting. You see people walking, you see the flow of cars. And something else that you have to, probably the Americans may not understand right away, that the very sign of a sedan, of a private car, was a sign of totally new times, when your personal life is made it easier. You understand?
So that, I mean, that image, and it's a very striking image of seeing all of those lights and all of the flow is, okay, we've now arrived at one of the stages of this future. Now, there's also the fact that this is film kind of wanders in this one day all around Moscow, and there are these sequences that don't really, I would say, in a happy way, they don't forward the story. They're just this kind of celebration of what urban life is in this particular moment. I mean, even when they're going into the department store, or when they're walking around through the park, there's a kind of lyricism here about the city that's not really connected deeply. It's not connected at all to ideology. It's connected to living in that moment, and it's expressed, through this kind of very cinematic new wave. But by this I mean French and Italian new wave kinds of things, jump cuts, the wonderful use of music in the film. We don't have much time left, so tell us about the importance of this last scene and the singing in the subway. Because this song became very, very popular, if I'm correct.
The song started from the beginning. The song was so popular that actually, when you just mention, even now, so many years later, you mention the name of it, people start to sing it.
Okay.
Ta 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 ta. Because, and actually, it's known that the composer said, if anyone who kind of sings my song, I mean, just for himself, and so will give me a ruble, I'll be millionaire.
Right.
Because it was extremely popular.
Okay.
And it carried the kind of the sense of lightness of life.
Oh, very important.
Lightness of life. That means just because it's summer and the rain passes, I feel that I can do everything. I can walk around to the ocean and to Siberian tundra and so on. If I remember about Moscow, I will remember Moscow by simply a flower that comes in the spring. This is all kind of flower comes from the spring. The fialka in Russian is.
Well, and the film also emphasizes, I must say, because we have this young man who's been to Minsk and now he's in the stopover. It emphasizes the potential mobility of this generation, and since under Stalin mobility was strictly regulated.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So all of a sudden, if she chooses to go eventually to Siberia, there's presumably at that moment no particular blockage of that, and that's something new. Yeah.
Yeah. This is again a sense of freedom.
Okay.
A sense for young people.
We're going to have to end on the way in which this film creates that sense of freedom, because we've run out of time, my friend.
Oh, thank you.
So if you'd like to know more about City Cinematheque, or more generally about City University Television, CUNY TV, please visit our website, www.tv.cuny.edu. Now, when you get there, you're going to find information about our programming, how to be in contact with us, and how to download the CUNY TV app. So please visit www.tv.cuny.edu. Emil, always a pleasure to have you here, and today with your insider view of this, it's really extraordinary opportunity.
Part of my biography. What can I
okay,
say?
well, thank you for sharing it with us. Okay,
Thank you. Yeah.
And thank you for being with us today on City Cinematheque, and please come back in the future as we continue our stroll through the archives of film history. Bye for now.